My boss looked at me over the rims of her glasses like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe and said, almost bored, "Oh, please, you'll never find anyone better than this job." It's weird how a sentence can feel like someone closing a door in your face and locking it from the inside. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't throw anything. I just stood there in that too bright conference room with my badge on my chest and a stale coffee cooling in my hand, realizing for the first time that maybe she wasn't just wrong about me. Maybe I'd been wrong about myself for a long time, too. I should probably back up a second. My name's Daniel. I'm 32, office analyst in a mid-sized company that loves buzzwords and town halls more than actual people. I crunch numbers, build dashboards, clean up other people's messes in Excel, and call it insights. Nothing special from the outside. And for the last 5 years, I've had the same manager, Catherine Hayes. Catherine is the kind of person HR posters pretend don't exist. Perfect blazer, perfect eyeliner, perfect LinkedIn posts about accountability and ownership, and a talent for taking other people's work and rearranging the bullet points so it looks like hers. She never outright screams. She just cuts you into small pieces with small sentences in public. The thing is, I didn't start off hating her. When I joined, I actually thought she was doing me a favor. She took a chance on me when I switched industries. She introduced me in meetings as our data guy. She stayed late with me on my first big project, walking me through how the execs think, what they want to see. "You're smart, Dan," she said once, tapping my screen with her pen. "You do the heavy lifting, I'll handle the rooms. It's a good partnership." I believed her, maybe because I needed to. I had a mortgage, a car payment, and a father who kept saying, "Just keep your head down, son. You're lucky to have a stable job." Lucky. That word always sounded like a warning dressed as a compliment. Over time, the partnership shifted in tiny ways. She started forwarding me work at 6 p.m. with, "Need this for tomorrow's deck. Can you take a quick stab?" Quick always meant 3 hours. Our deck became my deck in meetings. I'd hear her in the boardroom through the glass. "My team pulled these numbers together. I pushed them to dig deeper into the trend." And I'd be outside, adjusting the HDMI cable, pretending not to hear. Everyone else saw it. Martin from IT once muttered, "You're basically her shadow," when he found me fixing a chart 10 minutes before a big presentation while she laughed with the VP about her new car. But nobody said anything out loud, because Catherine's numbers looked good. And when numbers look good, nobody asks how much blood they cost. The day with that sentence started like every other bad Tuesday. 8:15 a.m. I'm at my desk, headphones in, coffee number 1, going through weekend sales reports. My inbox is already a graveyard of urgent and need by ABOD emails. Catherine walks in at 8:30 exactly, like a clock with heels, and drops a folder on my desk without even slowing down. Finance sent through the preliminary budget scenarios. I told them you'd have options ready by 3. "You're welcome," she says, already halfway to her office. "I have the Q2 review deck due today, too," I remind her. She waves a hand. "You're fast. That's why I keep you." That's the thing about Catherine. Half the time, the insult comes packaged as praise, so you catch it too late. By noon, I'm juggling 2 impossible things and pretending not to feel the knot in my chest. I skip lunch, eat a protein bar over my keyboard, and listen to Catherine in the next cubicle row, practicing her narrative for the afternoon meeting. She rehearses like an actor. "We identified inefficiencies," she says. "We made tough calls." We. That word again. At 2:45, I send the scenarios to her with a clean summary and a simple note. All 3 options modeled. Recommend scenario B. Happy to walk you through. She replies 1 minute later, "Already in the conference room. Print the slides and bring them. And try not to look tired." Try not to look tired. The conference room is all glass walls and artificial plants. The VP of Operations, Karen, is there, along with 2 directors and some guy from finance, I don't know. Catherine is at the head of the table, flipping through my slides like she wrote them in her sleep. "Ah, there he is," she says when I walk in. Our number's magician. Everyone smiles politely. I plug in the laptop, get the projector working, and take a seat off to the side. The unofficial place for people who built things, but don't get to talk about them. Catherine starts. So, over the weekend, we looked at 3 budget paths, she says, clicking to the first slide. I pushed my team to really stress test these. She doesn't look at me once. She just keeps talking, walking them through the work I'd done while my eyes blurred at midnight on Sunday. To her credit, she doesn't get anything wrong. She knows exactly where every number came from. That's part of what made this all so confusing for so long. She does pay attention, just not to the part where people are people. About 10 minutes in, Karen asks a question about assumptions in scenario B. Catherine hesitates. It's tiny, half a second, but I see it. We assumed a conservative retention rate based on last year's trend, she says, and I know she's guessing. Karen frowns. Conservative? It looks pretty aggressive to me. Catherine turns her head slightly, almost annoyed, and says, Daniel, can you explain your logic there? There it is, my cue. Appear, speak, disappear. I lean forward. Sure. The retention rate looks high because we filtered out the one-off churn from that regional restructuring. If you look at the 3-year average, Catherine cuts in smoothly. Exactly what I told him to do. Use the 3-year average. So we're aligned. I stop mid-sentence. The room laughs politely. I feel my face go hot. I'm not usually dramatic, but something about that little I told him just lands differently. It's like watching someone sign their name on your work while you're still holding the pen. We wrap up. Karen seems satisfied for now. Finance guy nods. People collect their notepads. Catherine is glowing, that tight, polished kind of glow of someone who thinks she just nailed another performance. As they leave, she pats my shoulder like you'd pat a printer that hasn't jammed. Good job, Dan. See? This is why you need me in the room. I know how to sell your stuff. When it's just the 2 of us left, she slumps into a chair, kicks off one heel for a second, rubs her foot, then looks up at me. You looked stiff, she says, tilting her head. You should practice sounding more grateful when the VP compliments our work. Our work, I repeat. Right, she smiles. Don't start. I'm not starting, I say quietly. I'm just noticing that every time something goes well, it's we. And every time something goes wrong, it's Dan, explain yourself. Her eyes sharpen a little. That edge I've seen her use on vendors comes out. Are we really doing this? She asks. Because if we're doing this, I can list every time I covered for you, too. I don't remember you staying up with me on Sunday, I say. I remember you texting, make it good at 9 p.m., and going offline. Her mouth curls. Wow. Sensitive today. Look, Daniel. She stands up, straightens her blazer, and steps closer. This is how it works. You're good at the boring parts. I'm good at the parts that pay both our salaries. You get stability, visibility, a nice title on your email signature. I take the heat upstairs. It's a fair trade. It stopped feeling fair a while ago, I say. My voice is still low, calm. That almost scares me more than if I were shouting. She laughs once, a short, sharp sound. Oh, please, she says, rolling her eyes. You'll never find anyone better than this job. Not with your resume, not in this market. You want to throw away 5 years because you're upset about credit on a slide deck? Grow up. Something in me actually clicks at that. Not a dramatic movie moment. More like the sound a deadbolt makes when it finally lines up with the frame. I look at her. Really look. Not as my boss, not as the person who hired me, not as the one who controls my performance review. Just as another human being who is betting that I'm more afraid of starting over than I am of shrinking. For the first time, I don't feel grateful. I feel tired. Bone-deep tired. I get it now, I say. I'm not upset about the slides. She raises an eyebrow. Then what are you upset about? I'm upset that I believed you when you said this was the best I could do, I answer. That's on me. But it won't be for much longer. She smirks, already dismissing it. Sure, Daniel. Send me the final files before you leave today. We have another meeting Thursday. I pick up my notebook. Yeah, I say. We do. I walk out of the conference room feeling something I haven't felt in a long time in that building. Like I'm not the one being evaluated. Like I'm the one silently evaluating them. The open office buzzes around me, keyboards, phones, the low murmur of people who've accepted this as normal. I sit down at my desk, open my inbox, and stare at the company logo in the corner of the screen. Same job, same boss, same chair, but that sentence is still echoing in my head. You'll never find anyone better than this job. For the first time, instead of making me afraid, it makes me curious. What if she's wrong? I thought things would quiet down after that meeting, or at least settle into the same predictable cycle they always had. But that wasn't what happened. Catherine didn't get calmer. She got sharper, like a person who feels the leash slipping out of her hand and tightens her grip out of reflex. The next morning, she was already at my desk when I came in, arms crossed, foot tapping lightly. A gesture she used when pretending she wasn't furious. We need to talk, she said the moment I sat down. No greeting. About what? Your attitude yesterday? Her voice was low, controlled, the kind of tone she used right before she dressed a vendor down in the hallway. I closed my laptop slowly. My attitude? She leaned closer. You embarrassed me in front of Karen. When I said I told you to use the 3-year average, you paused. It made me look like I didn't know what I was talking about. I blinked. I paused because you didn't tell me that. That's not the point, she snapped. The point is how it looked. There was a moment, a very small one, where she seemed rattled, like she wasn't sure which version of me she'd woken up to, the one who swallowed things whole, or the one she saw in the conference room yesterday. I'm not your problem, Catherine, I said quietly. She straightened, smiled tight. You are when your behavior affects my meetings. That line hung between us like a cold draft. Before I could respond, she added, We're doing the department-wide strategy review Friday. I need the draft deck by end of day tomorrow. That's a full quarter analysis. And? She raised her eyebrows. You can handle it. Of course she said that. She'd been testing my limits for years. The difference now was that I finally recognized it as testing. She walked away before I could answer, heels clicking like punctuation marks. I opened my laptop, pulled up the template she wanted, and immediately saw what this really was. The review wasn't due for another 2 weeks. She'd moved the timeline up without telling anyone, not because she needed speed, because she wanted control. I spent the first half of the day gathering data from finance and operations. Normally, they responded quickly when I asked for numbers, but that day every reply came with an asterisk. Catherine asked for this already. We sent preliminary figures to your boss last night. She told us you two were revising assumptions. I frowned at my screen. Catherine never handled data requests herself. Too tedious, she said. But suddenly she was inserting herself into every thread, every conversation, every file, and always in ways that didn't quite make sense. At 1:10 p.m., I walked into the break room to refill my coffee and overheard 2 co-workers whispering by the fridge. She's in one of her moods again. Yeah, Daniel's the target this week. He should have kept his head down. They fell silent the second they noticed me. One gave me a tight, sympathetic smile. The other avoided eye contact. I wasn't angry at them. I understood. Catherine had built a culture around herself where speaking up was social suicide. But this time, something was different. I wasn't scared. I was observant. By 3 p.m., I'd finished the performance section of the deck and moved into projections. That's when I found it. A folder buried inside the shared drive labeled Archive Review Das 20-21. I opened it out of habit, looking for old assumption models. Inside were multiple versions of quarterly reports, each with Catherine's initials in the metadata, each slightly altered. Some were minor edits, others Entire revenue assumptions shifted by as much as 7–10%. Enough to change a narrative, enough to make underperformance look like growth, enough to justify her bonuses. At first I thought I'd misread something. I opened file after file, my pulse picking up. It wasn't one mistake. It was a pattern spanning years, backdated changes, quiet, overwritten formulas, slides exported with numbers that didn't match the spreadsheets they'd supposedly come from. My hands went cold. These weren't accidents. They were curated. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the monitor. Catherine wasn't just taking credit for work. She was rewriting it. I checked the access logs. She'd opened one of the archive spreadsheets at 6:12 a.m. today, then exported it at 6:16. 4 minutes, just enough time to tweak, polish, and send to the VP before I even arrived. Something heavy settled in my chest. Not anger, clarity. She'd built her reputation on the assumption that no one would ever look closely, and for years no one had, including me. But that wasn't the part that scared me yet. Around 4:30, she appeared beside my desk. "How's the deck?" she asked in a falsely light tone. "Almost done." "Good. Don't forget the cost optimization slide." She lowered her voice. "Make sure the numbers align with the narrative I sent Karen." I looked at her. "Catherine, some of those numbers don't match the actual data." "They don't have to match the raw data," she said sharply. "They need to match the story." There it was, finally spoken aloud. She saw my expression and added quieter, "Don't start moralizing. You know how this industry works." "No," I said slowly. "I know how you work." Her jaw tightened. A long silence stretched between us, the kind that makes other people in the office suddenly stand very still. "You think you're irreplaceable, Daniel?" she asked softly. "You think if you walk out, this place will fall apart? Let me give you some reality. Analysts grow on trees. Managers don't." "That's strange," I said, "because lately it feels like you're the one afraid of something." Her eyes flickered, the smallest crack. Then she leaned in, smiling without softness. "Finish the deck, and Daniel, don't wander into folders you don't need." She walked away, but she didn't look victorious. She looked shaken. I finished the deck by 6:45 and sent it to her with a brief note. No extra commentary, no emotion, just clean, precise work. My phone buzzed 2 minutes later. "Catherine, come to my office." When I stepped inside, she closed the door behind me. A first red flag. Catherine didn't close doors unless she wanted pressure without witnesses. She sat on the edge of her desk, arms folded. "We need to get back on the same page," she said, voice smooth. "You're spiraling into something unproductive." "I'm doing my job," I replied. "You're digging." Her eyes narrowed. "Why?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Because something shifted in her expression. A flicker of fear disguised as irritation. She stepped closer. Too close. "Listen carefully. You don't want to make trouble for yourself. Trust me." For years I would have backed down, apologized, smoothed things over. But not this time. "I think I already found trouble," I said quietly. "I'm just deciding what to do with it." Her breath hitched, barely perceptible. She knew. She didn't know what I'd seen or how much. But she knew I'd seen something. For the first time in our entire working relationship, Catherine Hayes looked genuinely unsure of herself. I walked out of her office with my heart steady, my steps calm, and one crystal clear understanding spreading through me like heat. Everything was about to change. For her? For me? For the entire story she'd been writing alone. I didn't sleep that night. Not from anxiety, from clarity. It felt like someone had finally turned the lights on in a room I'd been working in for years. I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying every favor Catherine ever asked for, every late-night data request, every "we'll clean it up later," she whispered before sending a slide upstairs. And I realized something I'd never dared admit to myself. She needed me more than I ever needed her. The next morning I showered, shaved, and drove to the office with a strange calm humming under my ribs. The kind you feel right before you stop apologizing for things that were never your fault. At 8:02 a.m., I sent a message to a number I hadn't used in months, the hiring manager at Levantin Analytics. We'd met at a conference last year, and he'd said, "If you ever think of switching teams, call me." I never did. Not because I was loyal to Catherine, because I didn't think anyone else would want me. "Still hiring?" I texted. He replied in less than 5 minutes. "For you? Yes. Can you talk today?" That was the moment I knew the switch inside me wasn't temporary. It was permanent. At 10:30, I stepped into a glass-walled meeting room and logged into a video call with Levantin's director. We went through my portfolio, my dashboards, my reporting logic. He didn't ask who took credit for the work, because the files already showed metadata. I was the one who built them. I watched him scroll silently through months of deliverables that had always been labeled Catherine's team. When he looked up, he said something no one in my company had ever said aloud. "Your work is clean, strong, and yours." My throat tightened a little at that last word. I didn't realize how much I'd needed to hear it. They made an offer the same afternoon. Higher salary, better hours, a title that didn't sound like I was someone's assistant. I didn't accept immediately, not because I was unsure, but because something inside me wanted Catherine to feel the shift before she saw the paperwork. If she liked control so much, she was about to learn what it felt like to lose it. Back at the office, Catherine spent the entire day circling me without speaking to me directly. She hovered in conversations I had with coworkers. She appeared behind me silently when I was updating a report. She watched me, measuring something as if she knew a storm was forming, but couldn't tell where. Around 4 p.m., she finally made her move. "Daniel!" Her voice was sugar-coated steel. A word. We stepped into her office. She shut the door with a gentle click. The sound of someone sealing a trap they were standing inside without realizing it. She leaned against her desk, arms crossed. "I want us aligned before Friday. Your tone yesterday wasn't acceptable." "I know," I said softly. Her face softened in triumph, like she'd just pulled a thorn out of her own paw. "Good. I knew you'd come around. You're too smart to sabotage your career over—" "I wasn't talking about my tone," I cut in. "I meant I know what you were doing." Silence. Real silence. The kind that makes dust float more slowly. I sat down opposite her, calm. "You've been altering historical reports, adjusting assumptions, rewriting data narratives." Her jaw locked. "Careful." "You want careful?" I asked. "I can be careful. I documented everything today." A flicker. Not fear. Not yet. But recognition. "Daniel," she said quietly, "you don't understand what you're implying. I understand exactly. And so will compliance." Her heel tapped once against the carpet. A tiny, involuntary sound. "You're making a mistake," she whispered. "Maybe," I said. "But it won't be the same mistake I've made for the last 5 years." She stared at me like she was trying to read a document written in a language she didn't know. Then, like a mask slipping, she smiled. Tight, controlled, venom beneath the surface. "You think you have leverage," she said. "But you don't. You don't have context. You don't have access to the explanations. You don't have—" "I don't need explanations," I said. "I have timestamps." A pause. A breath. Something in her expression cracked so faintly it might have been imaginary. But I saw it. "And that's not the part you should worry about yet." She blinked, thrown off balance. "What do you mean?" "You'll see." I stood, opened the door, and walked out. Her eyes followed me the entire way. Not angry now, not triumphant. Uncertain. And Catherine Hayes did not do uncertainty. The next morning she overcorrected. That's how I knew she was scared. She brought me coffee. Actual coffee, not the burnt sludge from the office machine. She complimented my initiative. She told 2 coworkers that I'd saved last quarter's performance review. She invited me to a leadership lunch she'd never invited me to before. It was almost funny. She had no idea I'd already signed the offer with Leventon. My start date was in 3 weeks. Background check completed. Contract executed. I wasn't her employee anymore. I was a countdown. By Thursday afternoon, the company buzz was intense. Catherine's deck, the one built on the numbers she aligned, was going to the executive committee. And if Karen saw the discrepancies, things would unravel. Catherine must have sensed it too, because she micromanaged everyone viciously that morning. At 2:17 p.m., she stormed up to my desk holding printed slides, face pale. "These numbers don't match operations file," she hissed. "Because the operations file wasn't changed," I said. Her voice softened into a warning whisper. "Fix it." "I'm not altering data for you," I replied. Her lashes fluttered once. Her composure wobbled. Just for a second. "You're being dramatic," she whispered. "I'm telling you as your manager." "I won't be your employee by next month," I said. Everything in her froze. "What?" I turned my monitor slightly toward her. An email draft was open, addressed to HR and compliance. Attached were the archived reports she'd altered. Her face drained of color. "You wouldn't," she said. "I already did." Her lips parted, silent, then quietly, like she was speaking to herself more than me. "Daniel, what have you done?" What I had done was simple. I had stopped being the person she could shape. I had stopped being her shadow. She tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. The confidence, the control, the "I'm untouchable" exterior, it all slipped in one long exhale. For the first time in 5 years, Catherine Hayes looked small. I stood, gathered my notebook, and said the sentence that would echo in that office long after I was gone. "I'm not cleaning up your story anymore." And then the silence hit, the kind that means something's gone wrong. Not for me, for her, because everything she'd built on other people's work was about to collapse. HR moved faster than I expected. The morning after I sent the reports, I got a calendar invite for a clarification meeting with compliance and the head of finance. No Catherine on the invite, just 3 names that usually stayed above my pay grade. I walked into the small conference room at 9 a.m. A folder with my name on it sat on the table. The compliance officer, a woman named Lisa, I'd only seen in passing, nodded to me. "Daniel, thanks for coming," she said. "We just want to understand what you emailed last night." I sat, folded my hands, and walked them through it. The archive folder, the mismatched assumptions, the altered exports. I stuck to facts. No commentary, no accusations. Just what the documents showed. Finance scrolled on his laptop, frowning. "These versions were never logged in our change history," he muttered, "and yet the presentations to the board use these figures." Lisa looked at me. Who had access to this folder? "I did," I said, "and Catherine Hayes. She opened several of these files in the last month." She wrote something down. "We'll take it from here." That was it. No dramatic declarations, no instant verdict. Just 3 people who suddenly looked a lot more awake than they had at 9 a.m. On my way back to my desk, I passed Catherine in the hallway. She was on the phone, voice pitched sweet. "Of course, Karen, we're totally aligned on the narrative. I'll walk the team through it." Her eyes met mine for half a second. Whatever she saw there made her pause mid-sentence. For the first time, she didn't finish her thought confidently. She just swallowed and turned away. By lunch, the air in the office felt different. People were quieter. 2 HR reps walked by together, which never happened. Someone from IT stopped by Catherine's office and asked for her laptop, for a quick check. But the real surprise wasn't what happened to her. It was what didn't happen to me. No one froze me out. No one pulled me into a side room and said, "Why would you do that?" If anything, people moved out of my way more respectfully. A few coworkers gave me small nods, like they'd heard something without wanting to know the details. At 3 p.m., my phone buzzed with an internal message from HR. "Hi, Daniel. We've received notice of your resignation effective in 3 weeks. Can you stop by to sign the formal letter?" Catherine had clearly seen the HR email from Levanton. They needed to process my exit. The timing wasn't mine, but it fit. I went down, signed the paperwork, and when I came back up, Catherine was waiting by my desk. "Office," she said, clipped. We walked in silence. She closed the door harder than necessary this time. "What did you tell them?" she demanded. "The truth," I said. "You implied fraud." "I showed them numbers," I replied. "They're assigning the words." She laughed, but it came out cracked. "You think they'll believe you over me? Over my track record? My performance?" "I think they'll believe the timestamps," I said, "and the files your account edited at 6 in the morning." For a moment she dropped the act. Her shoulders sagged. She looked less like an untouchable manager and more like a tired person who'd been playing a part for too long. "You're really going to leave," she said quietly. "Just like that." "Not just like that," I answered. "I stayed for 5 years. I gave you my best work. I asked for basic respect. You answered with a leash and a threat." She looked at me, eyes bright with something that wasn't quite anger. "I made you," she whispered. "Without me, you'd still be sending spreadsheets from some entry-level role." "That's the problem," I said. "You believe that." Her jaw clenched. "You will never find a job that tolerates your moral grandstanding the way I did." I thought of Leventon, of the offer letter in my inbox, of a director who'd said, "Your work is yours." I smiled a little. "You're right," I said. "I'm done with being tolerated." That was the last time she said my name like it meant ownership. 3 days later, she was gone. No big announcement. No farewell email packed with vague platitudes. One morning, an all-staff message went out from HR. "Effective immediately, Catherine Hayes is no longer with the company. Interim reporting lines are attached." People read it, looked up, and then looked at me. I just nodded once and went back to my workstation. Later, I heard fragments in the kitchen. Words like audit, misrepresentation, board review. I wasn't part of those rooms, and I didn't need to be. Whatever happened after I'd handed over the evidence was between her and the people she'd been performing for. My part was done. What mattered to me was much simpler. I'd given them the truth and my notice. I walked away from both with my spine intact. On my last day, my badge stopped working at exactly 5:01 p.m. I handed it in at the front desk, shook a few hands, accepted an awkward hug from Martin in IT, and left without a goodbye speech. Catherine wasn't there. Her nameplate had already been removed from the door. The office looked like it was pretending she'd never existed. Outside, the air felt colder than inside, but cleaner. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, holding the box with my plant, 2 mugs, and a stack of old notebooks, and realized something that surprised me. I wasn't sad. I wasn't relieved in the noisy, triumphant way people imagine, either. I was level, quiet, like I'd finally put down a bag I'd been carrying so long I'd stopped noticing the weight. Leventon's office was across town, on a higher floor, with better coffee and worse parking. My first day there, nobody knew my history. Nobody saw me as Catherine's guy. I was just Daniel, the new analyst. When I walked into my manager's office, a guy named Marco who wore shirts without ties and actually read reports before meetings, he said, "We brought you in because your previous work was sharp. We'll give you the rooms if you want them. You won't have to hide behind anyone." It was such a simple sentence. It almost hurt. The first time I presented at Levantin, my name was on the slide. No one tried to change it to our team. No one interrupted to claim they'd told me what to do. When I finished, Marco just said, "Questions for Daniel?" and leaned back. That was it. No performance. No stolen credit. Just work. Weeks went by. I woke up at normal hours. I logged off without flinching every time my phone buzzed. I went to the gym again. My father stopped saying, "Just be grateful," and started saying, "You seem different, in a good way." Sometimes bits of news about my old company floated over. An ex-colleague mentioned that the board had restructured leadership after the audit, that some contracts had to be renegotiated, that Catherine had stepped away to pursue other opportunities, which everyone knew was corporate for "you're done here." I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I didn't stalk her LinkedIn to see where she landed. I just noted quietly that Choices had finally sent their invoice. One evening, months later, I was sitting at my new desk, finishing up a model. The office was almost empty. The city lights outside were soft and distant. My screen showed a clean spreadsheet with my initials in the metadata and my name on the output. I leaned back, rubbed my eyes, and thought about that sentence again. "Oh, please, you'll never find anyone better than this job." She'd said it like a verdict. Turned out it was just a mirror. It showed exactly how small she needed me to be to feel big herself. I'd believed her for years. That was on me. I let one person's fear define my ceiling. I stayed because I thought stability meant letting someone own my time, my voice, my work. I know better now. A job is a contract, not a prison. A manager is a role, not a god. And respect isn't a perk you earn by staying quiet. It's the minimum price of admission. If someone tells you no one else will want you, what they're really saying is, "I'm terrified that someone else will see your value without needing to own it." She panicked when she realized I'd stopped believing her. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't slam doors. I just walked out, took my work with me, and gave my effort to a place that treated it like it mattered. And for the first time in years, the only person who had any say in whether I stayed or left was me.